Welcome to Dementia Friendly Prince George's County, Maryland Northern Sector webinar series for caregivers. Today's topic is Moving Mom and Dad, presented by Jennifer Tillman and sponsored by the Prince George's County government and the Department of Family Services. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dementia Friends of America webinar series. We are so glad that you are joining us tonight to learn more about dementia awareness and how we can build a more supportive and informed community. My name is Caesar, and I am honored to be here on behalf of Dementia Friendly America and our local DFA Northern Prince George's County initiative. Tonight's session is part of our ongoing effort to increase understanding, reduce stigma, and provide meaningful resources to individuals, caregivers, and professionals impacted by dementia. Before we begin, I want to share an important opportunity. In partnership with the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, we are offering free confidential memory screenings and for adults who would like to better understand their cognitive health. These screenings are one-on-one. They're private, informational, and a caring first step, and it's not a diagnosis. Screenings are available at 15 Crescent Road, Greenbelt, Maryland, starting Tuesday, February 10th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And to schedule an appointment, please call me at 240-241-0037. And remember that early detection and awareness matters, and we encourage you to take advantage of this free service or share it with someone who may benefit from it. We also consider inviting you to become a dementia friend. Through a short online training, you can learn how dementia affects daily life, how it improves communication and improves skills, and helps create a more inclusive and understanding community. It only takes a short time to complete, and you'll receive a certificate upon completion. And you can register online, and small actions truly make a big difference. We also know that dementia impacts not just individuals, but families and caregivers as well. That's why we are offering free caregiver support groups that are both in person at the Greenbelt Community Center and virtual via Zoom. These groups provide a welcoming space to connect, share experiences, and receive encouragement. And we also have our Memory Cafe, which has a pre-registration that is required, and it is a stigma-free environment for individuals with early-stage Alzheimer's disease, mild cognitive disease, and mild cognitive impairment, along with their caregivers and loved ones. We also are offering caregiver consultations where you can meet one-on-one with a caregiver specialist for support, guidance, resources, and practical strategies to help you navigate caregiving challenges. For tonight's presentation, I will ask that everyone refrain from asking any questions so as to not interrupt the presentation until the end when I open the discussion up for questions. And you're welcome to leave your questions in the chat at any time. Now, let's begin tonight's presentation. Jennifer, I will pass it on to you now.
Okay, thank you, Caesar. Welcome everyone to tonight's presentation. And I guess Caesar's going to pull up the slides, but let me just share a little bit about me. I'm Jennifer Tillman. I am a real estate agent for over 20 plus years with Keller Williams Preferred Properties. And I also have been a member of the Prince George's County Senior Provider Network for maybe about 16 years or so. And so I'm part of the group that serves seniors. In my real estate world, I was a caregiver of both my mom and dad. I moved them from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and they came to live with me. And being a part of the network, Prince George's Senior Provider Network, allowed me to tap into many of the resources for seniors. And I decided to work in that area in my real estate world. So I've been working with many caregivers. We do a yearly caregivers retreat. And so I've been working a lot with caregivers and with seniors in their later life transitions to make sure that they are successfully aging. So tonight's presentation is called Moving Mom and Dad, and it derived from a focus group discussion with adult children with aging parents. And the adult children, after discussing a lot about their experiences, decided to put this together because it was lessons learned. They called it mistakes that they made, but they learned from those mistakes. And so I'm sharing with you some of the lessons learned from these adult children who had aging parents that had to make some decisions around where they lived, the housing, as well as their health care. The presentation is also, the focus group was done by Seniors Real Estate Institute, SREI, of which I'm also a member of the SREI. So as we get started, how to avoid 5 common mistakes adult children with aging parents have made. And you can go to the next slide, Caesar. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is what is successful aging? And successful aging, studies show that there are several factors that come into play when we talk about aging successfully. And the first one is having a sense of purpose and contribution. As we get older, I think about my mother. When my mother first came to the Maryland area after leaving New Orleans, it was an abrupt move that they had to leave. And so after being in Maryland a while, she just wondered, what did God have in store for her now? Because she was very active back home in New Orleans. So it's having, wanting to know that you still matter, that maybe the wisdom that you have now that you're able to share with others. So you still want to have this sense of purpose. That's one of the key factors in aging successfully, because when you begin to feel that you don't matter anymore, that might bring on depression and some other things. Good health is also another key factor. And this might be keeping up with doctor appointments, taking the right medications, just keeping, in good health. And that's something that's really important. And the next one ties into having good health, physical activity, regular physical activity. Because when we stop moving around, we lose muscle mass, we develop chronic illnesses, diabetes, all of these kinds of illnesses when we stop moving. So we need to continue having some type of physical activity in our daily routine. Adequate nutrition. Sometimes when a person begins to live alone, they may not eat as well as they did when they were able to eat socially with others. They might lose an appetite, so adequate nutrition is really important for you to have a strong body, strong health, immune system. Uh, the next one is having as much freedom and a sense of independence as possible. Again, we all want to be able to make our own decisions. And when we lose that sense of control or sense of independence, that also is something that affects our successful aging. But as long as we're able to make our decisions, have some sense of independence, we're in control, we can age successfully. And then the last one is having the support that we need. It could be informal or formal support, but when we know that we have the support of our loved ones, our friends, and of other entities, we are not as stressed or whatever. We can age successfully. So these are the factors that come into play when we're talking about aging successfully. You can move on. And so the 5 lessons that I like to call them that these adult children came across or came to understand and wanted to share. The first mistake that they said was waiting until a crisis occurred to have a conversation with their loved one around housing and care options. So if you're the adult or the senior listening to this, also I want you to just take it from the standpoint of these are conversations and things that you have to also think about having with your loved ones as well. So we don't want to wait until a crisis occurs to start planning how we want the rest of our life to look. The next one was failing to adequately equip the home with accessibility features, allowing for safe and successful aging in place. Because many people want to age in place. They want to be able to stay in their current home, but we need to find out if it's feasible, if it's realistic, if it's feasible. And that might be our plan A, that we age in place and we do the things in the home to make it easy for us and comfortable and safe. However, life happens, and so life may happen, and we have to go to plan B. And what is plan B if we've never thought about what if? So, thinking about, what might happen at some point in our life where we would have to move. Sometimes we have to think about that and as well as equip the home currently for us to live safely. The third mistake was lack of knowledge about senior living lifestyles and communities, as well as care support options. The adult children felt like they didn't have enough information about what other communities are even available. How do you get into them? What are they about? What do they offer? So they didn't have that knowledge, as well as care options. The fourth mistake was trying to manage the liquidation of all of the stuff in an estate once their loved one either passed away or they were moving. What do we do with the stuff? And then the last thing that they felt was one of their mistakes was that they did not have adequate documentation. Maybe the loved one didn't have a will, or maybe they didn't have a power of attorney in place or trust documents. So those estate documents, and sometimes those things will keep you from taking care of your loved one's property when you don't have certain information in place. We can move, you can move forward. So what do we do to avoid these mistakes? How do we begin to avoid them? So we begin by having that, what I call the what if talk. Um, Maybe taking some time to really listen and really consider thinking about if you're the senior, what is it that I want? If you're the adult child, taking the time to have the conversations with your loved one so you know what their wishes are. Um, Determining if they did want to age in place, what is it going to cost, to age in place? What do we need to research? What do we? Maybe there's modifications that need to be done to the home. Is it feasible? So, what are the options around, determining if it's feasible to age in place? uh, Learning about the communities and the options that your loved one would have in the communities. And then also, as I mentioned, what are you going to do when you move and you have all of these things? Maybe it's a garage sale, maybe it's an estate sale, but learning about the resources so that the loved one is not doing all of these things by themselves. They have support. And then lastly, making sure that we have all of the documents in place. So these are the methods and things how to avoid making the mistakes that the adult children shared earlier. We can move on. So let's dig into how do we begin having these conversations. So the first lesson, as I mentioned, was uh, of not to wait until a crisis occurred to begin having the conversations. And a Greek philosopher said, We have two ears and one mouth, so we should spend more time listening, twice as much time listening as speaking. So when we begin to have these conversations with our loved one, we want to be sensitive to their emotion. You can move forward, Caesar. We want to be sensitive to their emotions, and consider, the what ifs. Sometimes when a loved one is having these conversations, they might feel that they're already losing control over their life because they're beginning to talk about these what ifs. But it is something that we want to do. So we might want to, Caesar, you can move to the next slide. Okay. Yes. So we want to be sensitive to the other's emotions. We want to listen for what their wishes are. We want to also listen for any of their fears, things that are concerning them. They might want to say, well, I might not mind moving, but I want to make sure that I'm close to church. Or I want to still make sure that I can go out with my friends. Maybe there's a weekly get together. So you want to listen for their what they wish to still have in their life. Um, and we also want to have an open dialogue with them and not sound like you're the parent. If this is coming from the adult child, you want to partner with your loved one when you begin discussing this. So, as we see here on the slide, understanding their needs and concerns. And studies show that while many adult children with aging parents report that they really know their wishes, it says that their perceptions are not often correct. It's not really the wishes of their parents. And sometimes the adult children make these decisions without even having conversations, with their parents. So, they do want to take the time, like I said, understand what your loved one's wishes are, do the exploration, and then you can, um, begin to move forward. All right, we can move one more. I think I started talking before you move the slide. You can move. Okay, so yes, I want to go back to everyone has, maybe they plan differently. Some people might plan out their future, and other people may not want to talk about their future. But again, listen, be sensitive to their emotions, focus on what the loved one really needs. Sometimes there's some preconceived notions. We want to get the facts. And again, as I mentioned, we want to collaborate as a partner and not as a parent. Be patient with your loved one as they're thinking, and don't rush them to decide on something because this is a big step, in their life as to what their housing might need to be and their care options. And so we want to give them some space. We want to give them some time to reflect on the changes that are occurring. But it's important for us to plan. It's important for us to talk about these things because we do want to have some plans in place. We can move forward. So the adults that took this that were in this focus group thought that it might be helpful to talk about some conversation starters, and so they actually shared some of how they started some of the conversations. And they suggested that this is just planting seeds and waiting to see what comes from the conversations, but not rushing anything, not rushing their loved ones to make any decisions. So I'll read since the screen might be a little small. But one of the conversations that one of the gentlemen shared was he said, "Dad, I know that you are okay with living where you are right now, but I just wondered if you ever thought about what you would do if you needed more help managing the house, or if your health declined and you needed more support." So, this was a way of him getting into the conversation with his loved one, with his dad, not pressuring him on anything, but just the what if. Have you ever thought about if you needed more support or help managing the house? What do you feel you want to do? Or Have you ever thought about if something ever happened to you, um, what would what would you need? So he's trying to get at his asking his dad to start thinking about some things. Another example is, Dad, it occurs to me that it seems that you're only using a small percentage of this big house. Have you ever thought about finding something smaller? Sometimes, our loved ones would like to engage in that kind of conversation, and they might not feel like they want to be the ones to start it. So again, either or, it could be the adult child, it could be the senior, um, starting the conversation, so that you can begin planning, what you might need to be moving into before a crisis occurs. Next slide. And so this is another conversation from a daughter talking to her mom. Mom, I went to a seminar recently, and the speaker knew a lot about houses in the area specifically designed for people over 55 who don't want to deal with yard maintenance. Did you ever know that there were options like that nearby? And, of course, today we hear a lot about, senior housing. We don't know, we may not know all the ins and outs and the differences between them. But again, this just was a conversation starter that she used. Another one said, Mom, I was talking to a friend coworker the other day, and she mentioned that her mom is moving into a senior living community nearby. She said it was something that her mom has always, wanted to do, had been planning for a while. I'm curious, what are your thoughts about those types of communities? Do you know anyone who lives in one? Again, sometimes the loved one, the senior, wants to know about these communities because maybe they're at home by themselves, not doing anything, and they'd like to be in an active community where they can do some activities with other people their same age, living in an active adult community. We can go to the next slide. And then this is someone talking to both mom and dad together. Mom and dad, I would hope that you could live here together forever. But some of my friends are helping their parents who are older than the two of you. And it just got me to thinking about what if? I was wondering if the two of you ever talk about living anywhere other than here. Again, just conversation starters to help you get into those conversations about the future. Because again, some people love planning and some people don't want to talk about aging. They don't want to talk about that move. And so we might need to have some conversation starters to get us talking. We can move to the next one. And so now I want to consider three primary considerations for moves. Again, we don't want to wait for a crisis. So these are three types of moves, um, leading the perspective leading to an individual's choice. Okay. So the first one is a lifestyle or amenity based move. And this is when someone who is still living independently, and again, maybe they're an empty nester and they don't need the big house, the maintenance, the yard work, all of that. And they would like to still live in a place where there's lots of amenities and things to do. And so that's the lifestyle amenity. They still are close to friends, they can still see their grandkids. They don't have the maintenance of the home. They want to be social with others, they want to take in some activities. They might have quality health care that's still nearby, and they don't have any real immediate needs right now. So that's the lifestyle and amenity based move. And lots of times people make these moves, like I said, ahead of time before crisis occurs. And I'll talk about some of the communities that will allow you to stay in that same community to move into assisted living and other needs that you might have once you've made this one move. The second is anticipatory or preparatory moves. And this is when a loved one is anticipating that they will need at some point more medical services. So when they make this move, it's convenience to health and personal care. They're planning right now for future healthcare needs. Um, it's a early, maybe they're in an early phase of dementia, of cognitive decline. Um, Either the wife or the spouse, husband. Long-term financial considerations. They're planning some long-term financial situations. They're free from the house and the maintenance, responsibilities, and they desire to avoid placing a burden sometimes on family members. And so they make this move ahead of time, anticipating that they're going to need some support. So let's just make this move now, where I can be in a community where I can get the help that I need, the support that I need, the medical that I need. And then the last type of move is a needs based or crisis based move. And this is usually when a crisis has occurred. Maybe a loved one has been in an accident, or they've fallen, um, or something has happened, and now they do need to move out of their home into a 24-hour supervised community. Um, and so, you know, I don't really need to go into much more detail there, because they're unable to live by themselves. Maybe they are not able to do um, all of the daily activity, the daily activities of eating, cleaning, dressing, transporting, all of those things. And so they do need the 24-hour care now. So again, it's a mixture. I mean, sometimes one will, be in any of these three types of moves. But again, it's about planning ahead of time and having the discussions. You can move to the next one. Thank you. So the second lesson, so that first lesson we talked about, and that was just having the conversations and thinking about the types of moves. When is the right time, so you don't wait for the crises. The second lesson, as we had mentioned in the beginning, is avoid avoid failing to adequately equip the home with accessibility features, allowing for safe and successful aging in place. So yes, there are times when one wants to stay in their home, and that's quite fine. Um, and so taking the time to do the research, find out what's feasible, what could we put in the home to make it more accessible and safe. Um, so when assisting older adults attempting to age in place, it's critical to ensure that the resident is adequately equipped. Um, Also including that there's going to be some safe transportation to get to and from doctors and things like that. Beyond the physical changes, the challenges in aging in place, families must also prepare for nutritional support, social support, psychological, and emotional aspects of living alone. And sometimes you're not going to be living alone initially, but at some point you might be living alone. And so, besides making the house safe and accessible, you want to also think about nutrition, social activities. How often are you going to be able to get out, the transportation, and then just, having some companion support. You can go to the next slide. So strategies for aging in place, address safety concerns like, so that there won't be any, uh, decrease the risk of falling. Um, if it's carpet, you might want to put the nice laminate floors, no rugs, loose rugs and things like that. Um, Guard, handrails and things, so you just want to make sure that address those safety concerns. You want to be able to prepare for emergencies. What's going to happen when there's an emergency. My sister-in-law actually was living alone, and she had fallen in the home, and nobody knew about it. And she just happened to come through after a while. And then because of that, she's decided to move a little closer to her daughter. She still lives in her own place, but it's closer now because initially she was out of state. She was in a different state. I just helped another person move out of state to the Maryland area to be closer to her family. She's still in her own little condo. However, she's closer now because you have to prepare for emergencies. Have a plan to accommodate changes to their daily routine. So sometimes, if they are going to live in age in place, excuse me, think about having in-home care or companionship care. Someone to come in and do the errands, or clean their house or cook some meals. So you may want to also have a plan for when the time comes when the person might need to have some of these things in home, coming in home. And then, as I mentioned, meet the need for companionship. Um, you can go to the next slide. And then more options, support them in staying active. Know the options for care. So what are the options to get in-home care? Talk about what it'll cost to age at home, the cost to, so what is it going to cost to put the stair lift in, or, replace the carpet, or, whatever it might be. Talk about the cost. Help them avoid scams because, when people know that loved ones live by themselves, there might be scams. What are they going to do when someone comes to the door? Do they have a camera? So things like that you want to just make sure that you have in place. And then some community support systems. Okay, we can move to the next one. And then lesson 3 was not having enough information about the communities that are available. So to do the research and learn about all of the living communities, the senior communities, and also the different types of care options that are available in these particular communities. And we're going to just breeze through these because I think most of you probably know, but you can go to the next slide, Caesar. The first one, of course, is independent living. Again, there's lots of condos and different types of, independent living. It doesn't even have to be a condo. There's really nice, beautiful homes that are not so much downsized, but they're all on one level living. And so you don't have to downsize and get rid of all of your things, but you might want to move from a 3-story home to a one-level living. I just helped a friend move in December from a 3-story home where it just was getting to be a little unbearable to continue to go up and down steps. And so now she's in a very nice single family home, but it's all on one level. So independent living, think about all of the options that, are available for independent living. You can move to the next one. And then, even in the independent living, there's lots of villages, communities where people get support from their neighbors. Maybe they all come together for to help each other, transportation, things like that. And then we have assisted living communities. Of course, this is where you need a higher level of support. Um, and you still might be able to maintain some level of independence, but you do need some a support with your ADLs, your daily activities of daily living. The next slide. And then, of course, we have the skilled and memory care. Sometimes it's just rehabilitation services or places that a person may go to after having surgery, and then they can go back to living by themselves or in an assisted living. Or you have specialized support, memory care, um, nursing homes, and things of that sort. So like I said, this was adult children that were taking, care of aging parents, and they had not done the research. And so, not planning ahead of time, not doing the research, they just made hurried decisions. And so they came back and said, if they had to do it again, they would have done lots of research. And even for us today, if we're pretty healthy, we're not thinking about, okay, what would I want? Where would I want to go if I did need to go into a nursing home or I needed more support? Even if you're well and independent living, it still might be something to think about because again, at some point we're going to all need some level of support. And if we think ahead of time what we're going to need, where we would like to be, what would we like, we can then share our wishes with our loved ones. We can move on to the next one. And so now we have more focus group sharing, and this is actually shared by individuals. So Carol shared that she said, while my dad was alive, mom seemed fine. They took care of each other and compensated for one another. But after dad fell, passing away less than a month later, it quickly became evident that mom wasn't able to stay at home by herself. She became anxious and agitated, got lost driving to familiar places, and more symptoms of dementia began to show up. The grab bars and handrails we had installed to help them get around just weren't enough. Despite our best efforts, we all knew she needed to move. And this was Carol. So again, our plan A might be to live in our home until we pass away, but some things might happen in life that will, uh, you know, make us move to plan B. So either someone would have to have lived with her mom in the house to take care of her, or her mom would have had to move to a place that would be better suited for her care. So we never know how life is going to show up, and that's why we do need to plan. The second one was from Ken. Ken says, if I could do it over again, I think maybe I could have been more assertive with my parents earlier, but they were a bit stubborn, and I realized that I couldn't control their decisions. So, again, we do the best that we can. We talk openly about what it is that mom and dad wants. We try to um, provide, what it is that their wishes are. And so this is what Ken felt. We can move to the next slide. And we have a couple more. So this is from Vivian. Vivian says, as soon as we agreed as a family that having mom leave her home was the right thing to do, we acted on it, coming from love and contribution. We let her know that we were not putting her somewhere. We were just getting her closer to so we could have more access to her and she would ultimately be safer. So that was from Vivian. And then Ingrid says, with careers and families of our own, we didn't see every detail of mom's day, making it easy to believe that she was okay. Over time, we began to notice little things that were unattended to. The small things became bigger over time. So, again, things people sharing about their loved ones and their experiences, and hopefully, again, it's going to allow us to consider having those conversations early and planning. We can move to the next slide. So, lesson 4 was don't manage the liquidation of the estate and personal items alone. Many of us, again, what are we going to do with the stuff that mom and dad may have left? Clearing out the house, just what are we going to do with those personal items? You can move to the next slide. Caesar. So the solution to this one is to surround yourself with a team of people. And Ronald Reagan had this quote, surround yourself with the best people you can find, delegate authority, and don't interfere once you've delegated them. You can move to the next slide. So enlist professional support to help you. Interview the professionals. Real estate agents can help you you know, get rid of the items in the home and put the home on the market. Sometimes you have to put the home on the market in order for you to pay for the assisted living or the community that your mom and dad's moving into, or even just to purchase the house that would be more comfortable. So real estate agents, assisted living locators. These are individuals who will help you tour the various communities so that you can really see what it is that you'd like to, where you'd like to live. And sometimes real estate agents will do that as well. I do that with some of my people that I know. They're just exploring. Move managers. These people will come in, they'll pack. Um, I have movers that will come in and pack. You can, you tell them, I want these things to go to Goodwill. I want these things to go to my storage unit. So they'll do the moving and packing for you, and even unpack at your new location. There's some move managers that will actually move your things. They'll first take pictures of where you have them and how you have your environment, and then when you get to the other end, they'll try to put those things in similar places for you so that it's not a drastic change. You have estate liquidators, and they will do the estate sales for you. And maybe there's items in your home that need to be auctioned and things like that. So that's the estate liquidators. Estate attorneys, very important. You want to make sure you understand all the documents. Lots of times people think that if they have power of attorney, they can still do things after the person passes away, and it's not the case. So you want to understand all of the documents and what should you put in place to protect the assets. Financial planners, again, what do you need to do to protect assets? And then I can't say it. Geriatric care managers and social workers, who will help you with your care. What level of care do you need? What locations, what places might be able to help you more so with that level of care? And I put the Prince George's Senior Provider Network logo right here because within this network, we have all of these types of providers for you. So again, Prince George's Senior Provider Network. You can move to the next slide. And so more tips for you. Start early and be patient. Depending on what it is that you're doing, if you're moving from one, you know, getting rid of things in a home so that you can move someplace else, you might want to start a couple of months ahead of time so that you can decide where things are going to go, discuss timelines, and set some expectations. Do your research and ask lots of questions. Delegate as much as possible to the pros and decide on whether or not you have enough items for an estate sale or a garage sale. I mean, with an estate sale, um, people come because you have nice items, but once they get there, they buy up everything because they get into this buying frenzy. So an estate sale might be better than just having a garage sale. And consider safety and your anxiety level before how much money it's going to cost. Of course, it has to be cost, you have to be able to afford it. But sometimes we want to also look at our safety and our anxiety level when we're thinking about cost, because that's also a cost. We can move to the next. And so, three most challenging tasks is sorting, organizing, and selecting personal items to be moved, deciding what to do with the things that you're leaving behind, and managing the actual liquidation process of these things. And so this is still part of what do we do with the items. And so you want to consider um, bringing on the pros. I have someone who's an organizer, and this is exactly what she does, just to help a person. Because lots of times, if you are grieving, in the grieving process, or and it doesn't have to be grieving a loss of a loved one. It could be grieving leaving this home that you've been in for 40 years. Um, you might need someone else to come and do the sorting while you're sitting there, but they can do the work for you, to sort it out just so that it's not all on you. We can move to the next slide. And then the last lesson was getting your documents in order, assembling your documents. You can move to the next slide. I'll go through some of the important things. So prepare ahead of time. The best to best avoid mistake number 5, not having all the documents that you need in place. Begin putting documents together sooner than later. So you definitely want to think about having a power of attorney, and we'll go through the different ones. But beyond typical estate planning, consult with a qualified attorney about the different scenarios, what would happen, this, that, or the other, so that they can help you determine what it is that you really do need to put in place. And avoid using online resources to save money. Again, sometimes you think it might be the easy way to go, but it's going to, hurt you in the long run. Or you may not get the education that you need to know what forms you do need to have in place. So we can move to the next slide. So we have different powers of attorney. We have the general power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, a medical power of attorney, as well as a durable power of attorney. And so the general power of attorney might be something that you put in place just for a short time. Your financial power of attorney might be something that you put in place to take care of your financials, and and all of those are good, but the durable power of attorney will be in place when it will continue to be in place when you are incapable of making decisions on your own. Um, so if you have memory issues and things like that, the durable power of attorney will continue even when you're incapable of making those decisions on your own. So you want to understand these different powers of attorney. Some of them, like just the medical one, it doesn't kick in until you're not able to make the decision on your medical decisions. So again, I'm not the attorney, but you want to sit and talk with the attorney about the different types of power of attorney and what it is that you're trying to do so you can determine what it is that you need. Trust documents. You may consider putting assets like your bank accounts, investment accounts, your house, your cars in trust so that at the time of death or whatever, your loved ones would not have to go through a probate process because everything is in a trust. Again, something that you want to talk to an attorney about to understand better. Um, Death certificates, you want to make sure you have these when you go to sell a property. They will be, title companies will want to see death certificates. And then home repair paperwork. That's just good to have to pass on to the next person purchasing your home. Next slide. So again, as we wrap up for the day, we want to avoid these mistakes, waiting until the crisis occurs to have the conversations about what it is that we want for the rest of our life to look like and where we want to be and how we want to be taken care of. Failing to adequately equip the home if you're planning to live in place, age in place. Uh, Having a knowledge of all of the different types of communities that you can live in and the care options, and then not trying to manage all the stuff and liquidating your personal items alone, and then having your documentation in place. And this is it. I think that's the last slide, but you can go and see. I think the next one might be questions. Oh, lessons learned. Again, have the talks, determine your priorities, and do the research. Um, Make the move before the crises. Get help with the stuff and assemble your documents. I think it's pretty much the same thing I just said. I'm sure this is the last slide. So if we have any questions, I know I may have gone on a little long. You can go to the next slide. I think it's a question, Caesar. Yeah.
All
Any,
right, I'll just let anybody go ahead and put their questions down in the discussion board, and then I will ask them as they come in.
okay. Well, I hope that you were able to gain something from this presentation. I think the main thing is to start planning, for the what ifs, and have a plan A and a plan B, because we never know how life is going to throw these, crazy things at us. But if we planned well, we will be able to move through, the situations, and make sure you get your documents in place. So you can move to the next slide.
Right, 1 second.
I think it's the end. So. Mhm. Yeah. So this is my phone number, and again, Prince George's County uh, Senior Provider Network, and some of the other information there. But thank you for attending, and